building, how it's dangerous. You have to know a lot. You have to know about the Yesodos. And then last week we discussed how Rabbi Nachman was telling us about, planting fruit trees. If you remember, Rabbi Nachman was teaching us that if one would understand the Yesod, he would understand that there's something called the Even Shasiya, right? That rock, everything in the world came from it. And if one would understand, like Shlomo HaMelech, he'd be able to plant any type of fruit in any place. Because there are branches coming from that root. And not called branches, whatever, underground, there's different roots, there's a whole world. That if one would understand, he would know where to connect to. And he could grow a sorghum, we said, in New York. Right? You could grow citrus in New York. You could do anything, or wherever you live, grow any plant. Yet we've forgotten that chachma. And then we were talking about the inyan of chachma versus bina. This was the big sugya. Whereas bina has a lot of details to understand detail after detail. Chachma is something deeper, something a little bit in a certain way. It's more simple. It's more plush. It doesn't have so many complexities. It's not so complicated. And this is the inyan of chachma. And we were discussing how chachma is something that we all need to work on in many aspects. We got into, I think, a conversation about knowing your own self, knowing your own wisdom. Right? Everybody knows the details of their life. They know what they like. They know what they like to eat. They know certain, qualities, certain hobbies, a lot of details of their life. But do they know who they are at their essence? Have they learned the sugya of das atzmacha? Know yourself. We're discussing this inyan. And then we got into, Rabbi Nachman said that the world thinks that they're getting smarter. Look at the technology we have nowadays versus the technology they had, in the 1500s. But Rabbi Nachman says it's not true. Because the chachma, the main chachma, which was going from 0 to 1, is bigger than from going from 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5. And the earlier generations had the chachma. They had to they had to be zocher to understand the bigger ideas. Again, the yesh me'ayin type of ideas. And then we can build off that. We can end up building a lot of technology. We can build whatever we do or have in the world. But the earlier generations, Rabbi Nachman said, were bigger chachamim. Because again, they had more chachma. Nowadays, we have more bina. Right? Bina is we have more details based on the chachma. So, it's fascinating, as we start tonight, that with all the details of life that we have, all the complexities and all the luxuries, we have many more luxuries for sure than they had back then, still, we're having a lot of issues. With all the details, with all the amazing technology, with everything that we have, we still haven't really figured it out yet.
It's worse.
He says it's worse. I can't compare. I'm only in the world so many years. But anyway, I don't like to necessarily compare to older generations.
It's worse.
Doubling down over there. It's worse.
I'm telling you, it's worse.
Well, yeah, I believe you. You've been around since at least 1980, no?
I've been around since 1948. I'm telling you that it's worse.
So let's explain, why is it worse? With all the luxuries, all the complexities.
That's it. You just hit it. You see, because we took on, and there were goyim that understand it. And, they're esoteric people. Some of them become philosophers and so forth. You got to be careful, because Rabbi Weinberger, in discussing, I believe, I'm not speaking out of space, but he even said that his Columbia philosophy doctorate is worthless. It's worthless. It's probably mostly by Goyim. The philosophies that he learned.
Right. Let's get into this. Let's get into this topic. You're going to add to what I have to say here.
Yeah, the Goyim gave you the philosophies. They make it.
So let's see what the problem is here.
All the rabbis, Nachman, everyone, they all talk about a simple life. Every one of them.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
That's the key.
So we're all looking, everybody's looking for happiness, yishuv hadas, menuchas hanefesh, to have a calm life, a happy life. With all the stuff we're running around, right? More and more stuff that we enjoy, maybe. Again, we still haven't found a proper building, a proper binyan, a proper structure to live in. It's a momentary, it's another momentary, so, right? Pleasure, temporary. Where we overlook, we're too busy sometimes for our families, or we're sometimes too busy for the more important things because we're running after what we think is going to bring us that happiness, that yishuv hadas, but yet we're overlooking the things that might actually bring us that happiness, that yishuv hadas. And now the major problem is, bichlal, is that we've lost the wisdom. We've lost the chachma. We're running around after details, after pratim, after binas, but that's not where the simcha is. Those are details of something. But if you miss the boat, you miss the something, the bigger picture, all the details are just details of what? They're just hanging. What are they connecting to? What are they connecting us to? Right? We've lost the wisdom of this world, the tachlis of this world, and we've lost the wisdom of ourselves. Who are we? Right? We discussed this last week. We've sold ourselves, traded ourselves in for cheaper, more temporary pleasures or inyanim. We've lost the wisdom, the yisodos, the foundations of our life. Now, in a deeper way, this whole world, right, this is all Hakdama, we're going to get into in a minute. This whole world is a Kadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon. Yes? Hashem willed this world, and therefore it is. As a Kadosh Baruch Hu created this world, he also put his Chachma. First, he willed the world to be, and then with his Chachma, his wisdom, his godly wisdom, of course, he created a world. And then with his Bina, he created details of the world. We live within this big circle of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's Chachma, because the word Chachma, just so you know, the gematria is Ayin Gimel, 73, which is really shorish of which word? Agul, a circle. Because Chachma surrounds. It's the beginning, 73, Ayin Gimel. It surrounds everything. And then inside the circle is the Yesod, then we build. Right? You need a place, and then you could build on top of that place. Building is Bina, is Bona. Right? So first you have to have the Chachma, you have to have the Yesod. If you don't have that, then all your building is just on flat ground. It could tip over. It doesn't have it's not anchored it's not grounded. That's why we have to figure out the Chachmas of this world, the Chachma of ourselves. Otherwise, we're doing a million things. We have many relationships. We have ruchnias, we have gashmias, we have a job, we have a family. We have all this stuff. But what's the source of it all? What's the source of it all? Who is the I inside? Ultimately, of course, it's the neshama. And in the world, the ultimate chachma is, of course, the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? The world of Emunah, the world of Bitachon, the world of Dveikis, the world of Ahava. These are the Yesodos. These are the big chachmas of the world. How many people are running after that? Those sugyas, the sugya of Emunah, of Bitachon, of Dveikis, we'll say in Ahava. How many people are truly, actively working on those sugyas? And you're being educated to know what they are. What is Emunah? What is Bitachon? What is Dveikis? How do I get it? Where do I get it? Who's working on these things? Seldom. It's not a very common sugya. Problem is, these are the Yesodos. And if one doesn't work on them, then again, he's building a building that's with a million details and a million mitzvahs that are not connected, that are not grounded. This is a problem. Now, if all details really have to, in essence, come together at a certain shoresh, a source, right? Every detail of life has to come from somewhere. That somewhere is the wisdom, is the chachma. So every detail of this world has to have a chachma that it comes from. Well then, where did the chachma go? Where is it? We're not happy in this world, even though we have a million binas, a million pratim, a million details, complications, luxuries, technologies. The reason we're not happy is because we don't have the chachmas. But if every bina, every detail, every luxury has to come from a certain chachma, where did it go? Where is it? Why don't we have it? Right? If we have it, we'd be okay. The earlier generations had it, right? So why don't we have it? Where'd it go? So with that, let's start. So Nachman says, right, we're in Sichos Samech, in this sefer on page Mem Zayin. V'alkein yesh devarim she'aser legalos osam. Says Rabbi Nachman, therefore, there are certain things, he's talking about wisdoms, chachmas, that are aser to be revealed. She'aser legalos osam. There are certain chachmas that are not allowed to be revealed to the public.
Ever?
To the public. In a general way for right now. Because if they would be revealed, because if the chachmas would be revealed, the later generations, us, we would turn it into avodah zarah. Now, Rabbi Nachman's vague here. We're going to try our best to understand. I mean, it's vague to me. It could be that many people understand exactly what he's talking about. Kiyesh ba'oso inyan, because there is in this thing, which again I assume it means the chachma, whichever chachma we're dealing with, kama devarim v'inyanim shetzrichim la'asos hazeh. Many pieces, right, to a chachma. V'mahayin is galos or chachma ba'olam, and if that chachma would be revealed to the world, v'hayu yodim osan ha'inyanim shetzrichim la'asos l'oso inyan, and they would know the pieces that are needed to do the thing for the inyan. It's vague. Again, the later generations would turn it into avodah zarah. Because the later generations are always adding chachma. Okay. First point I want to make is that I literally just saw it today in one of the Biyam Darkecha Svarim. He says that when you see the word aser in a way of pnimius, okay, Rabbi Nachman Chassidus, this is pnimius, and certainly if you're learning Sefer Kabbalah, the word aser, because it's not halachic, right? Usually we know aser mutter is in halacha. But when you're speaking in a Sefer of Machshava and Chassidus in Kabbalah, there's no halachas, right? There's no hilchas Chassidus. So what does aser mean? Aser means impossible. The alkain yesh devarim, there are things aser that are impossible to reveal them. Okay? This is the first way we're going to learn. What does that mean? It's impossible to reveal them. Because when we're discussing here the inyan of wisdom, of chachma, and chachma is built from many details of pratim, right? You can't know a chachma unless you know all the details and then you work backwards. But really, when you know all the details, you still don't know what is the klal. There's a hard topic to discuss because it is vague. But we have to learn it as a chachma for now and try to understand it the best we can. When a person wants to be zocha to a chachma, he can't do anything to be able to download that chachma directly. Chachma is built of many, many details. You do as best as you can, bina after bina, 50 gates of bina. You try as best you can, and at a certain point, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you're zocha, he drops in the full picture. You're seeing picture after picture. You're seeing 50 pictures in front of you. They're all over the place. You're seeing, right, literally 50 different pictures. Picture. You're like looking at this thing like, what is going on over here? And then in 1 second, you chop the whole thing. Meaning like this. You have 50 puzzle pieces. We'll use this as a mashal. There's no box. You have absolutely no idea what the picture is. That's a problem. Especially if you have like a 500-piece puzzle. You're done. Right? Okay, yeah, I guess you could work the outside, that you could figure out, but it's going to take a while. But imagine you're looking at the 500-piece puzzle, 100-piece puzzle, whatever it is. And you're just looking at you're just sitting there. You're like, you've seen puzzles before? When you get to the 500-piece puzzle, it is tiny. You can barely see anything. So you're looking. Doesn't look like anything. And then just in a second, you have this flash in your mind of, like your mind put together the pieces, and you chop, it's a mountain range with trees and flowers. And then it goes away. Right? And then you have the 500-piece puzzle. But now you have what to work with. All the pieces are binas, they're details. That 1 second where you chop the picture, that's the chachma. How'd that happen? You could look at those pieces 1,000,000 times and never be zochet to that. The chachma has to drop in your head. Right? Kodesh Baruch Hu has to do that. He uses the brain, obviously, as the vessel for such a thing. But there's no like switch you could turn on, right? With Bina, you look at a piece, you put it down. You take out another piece, you put it, right? There's what to do. I could analyze this piece. It looks a little bit green. It is the shape, correct? But for the chachma, the full picture, there's nothing you can really do. You have to be zochet to it. And therefore, what Rabbi Nachman, at least in the first way we could explain it, it's impossible to reveal chachma to later generations. Because you have to be zochet to it. You have to work on it yourself. A person could tell you, you could bring in a physical mashal, you could bring the horse to the trough, but you can't make him drink. You can give him everything, give him all the details, I can give you the whole Gemara, I can give you all the halachas, but to chop the bigger picture, that's on your own. That you have to be zocht. You have to work hard on that, you have to daven for that, you have to be open for that. Yeah? This is a very important aspect of chachma, as we're going to get to a little bit more, because chachma means koach ma. The koach of what is this? Meaning, I know that I have no ability to understand the bigger picture. It's like the sugya, we learned this a long time ago. It's like the second sicha, or first sicha, third sicha, first and third maybe. Tachlis hayediyah, the ultimate goal of all yediyah is asher lo neda. I don't know. The ultimate yediyah of all is I don't know. We can know so much, but at the end of the day, there's still so much we don't understand. And even what we think we know, lav dafka. Things could change. It looks one way, and in a second it changes, right? And therefore, it's an act. It's an in of bittul, it's an in of amuna, and that's what chachma is. Koach ma. What is this? But a person has to be open and honest, and we're going to get back to this toward the end. To be zochet to the chachma, right? You have to have a nova. That's the sugya of a nova. Now, Rabbi Nachman is teaching us a detail of this isser. Again, even though it's impossible. Isser means it's impossible to give over. But he's going to answer a question: why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it prohibited to reveal? Why did he make it like that? Why can't you pass on a chachma? And the problem is that if all chachmas are built of binas, so why is it that we can't just bina after bina after bina, and we could be able to figure out, we can go backwards, we can figure it out. So Rabbi Nachman says, the answer is because it's going to lead to avodah zarah. Right? If we would let people reveal chachmas in this generation, the later generations, it would come to avodah zarah. And therefore, he made it impossible to give over chachmas. What's the avodah zarah? How could this be avodah zarah? If all the details of the world now, again, pick any sugya you want, whether it's learning, whether it's the world of astronomy, astrology, ecology, whatever you want, whatever the details are, pick anything. If all the details had to at some point come from a certain wisdom, a certain source, and it took the earlier generations of big chachma to come up to figure that out, and now all the details of life that we're building on that is making that chachma bigger. How could it be if the wisdom would be revealed to us today, it would turn to avodah zarah? How does that make any sense? What's the avodah zarah here? That's strong terminology on avodah zarah. So if we want to be lumdish about this, if you don't understand what I'm about to say, then just put this in parentheses. But in the way of learning something called the cheftza, and there's a gavra. Cheftza means an object, and Gavra means a person, an individual. Right? There's two parts to the case here. We have the Cheftza, which is Chachma, wisdom, and we have the Gavra, which is the person. We have a person trying to understand a certain wisdom. Yes? Now, every object...
What was the person again?
Gavra. Every object, everything in this world needs a vessel to hold it. Nothing floats. Water needs a vessel so you could drink it. Light also. If there would be no, I don't know exactly what the science is, but everything needs a background, a vessel to hold it. Now, true wisdom can only be sent into a keli, a vessel that's appropriate for it. Right? If we want to download Chachma, Cheftza, it needs a proper keli, it needs a proper Gavra, person. Man, you take the clearest, crisp water, cold, delicious, and you put it into a dirty cup. Not the inside of the cup is not dirty, the outside of the cup is dirty. No one's going to drink that water because it looks like the water is dirty. The water's not dirty. The water's crispy good. If you pour it out, gewaldig. But once it's put in a dirty vessel, again, dirty only on the outside, so it looks like the water's dirty. No one's touching that cup. And not only that, they might use it for something totally different. They might, I don't know, wash their dog with it or something. So I don't mind using dirty water and washing my dog. So not only do you not approach the water, you totally are mevazda the good water. No, I love dogs, okay? But you're using crisp, clear H2O that can help hydrate a human being, and you're using it on whatever, washing your frog. I don't know. Something much lower level, right? See, there's a big difference between the earlier generations and the later generations. And this goes back to what you wanted to say. That the earlier generations, this, I don't like to compare it to earlier generations, but I think it's clear, there's a fact, this isn't an opinion. The earlier generations were less complex. They just had less stuff. There was less stuff going on. Less buildings, there was less technology, there was just less monetary inyanim.
Less distractions.
Less distractions, of course, right? It was just less. It's just the way it is. There's also less people. So therefore, because there was less stuff, there was less complications, there was less complexities, in a certain way, they were simpler people. Yes? They just didn't have all the stuff that we have, so they must have been simpler in a certain way. I didn't say better. They were more simple. Versus we, who have so much stuff, so many complexities, whether it's in business, whether it's even in Ruchnius, the amount of svarim we have in this base measures, they didn't have in the 1400s, right? Even in Ruchnius, it's become more complicated. That doesn't mean bad. It's just, it is what it is. But Chachma, which is a simple wisdom, Chachma is more pure, it doesn't have a million details, it's the Yesod. The Yesod of a building is very simple, it's just concrete. Not fancy. You're not putting fancy mirrors in the Yesod, like you're going to in the fancy penthouse suite, apartment, whatever. And all the fancy furniture, you're not going to put the fancy furniture on the Yesod, even though the Yesod is the most important part of the building. Can't have a big skyscraper without the Yesod, but you would never put the fancy stuff in the Yesod, because the Yesod has to just be simple. Just concrete, metal, I don't know, however you build, but simple. Keep it simple. As you move on and you build on top, and there's binas and there's floors and there's pratim, there's details, then as you get higher up, you can start adding fancy stuff, furnitures, mirrors, specific details. But since Chachma, the ultimate Chachma, is simple, it needed kalim that were simple. The earlier generations. The later generations, we in general are more complicated. So if you take a Chachma and you put that into a complicated keli, that's like putting crisp, clear water into a dirty keli. And you might get a avodah zarah. You might start using that water to wash your frog. You might start using it, you might totally mess up on an inyan. Because if you think using your Bina brain, your detailed brain, and you start trying to get a chachma, you might make the ikar tafel and the tafel the ikar. You might mix things up. You might think that there's a certain detail that's even greater than the actual main thing. For example, a person in love with tzedakah, let's just say, in love with tzedakah, it's his favorite mitzvah, it's gewaldig, he loves giving money, loves helping people, it's a great thing. But if he thinks that that mitzvah is more important than emunah b'Hashem, let's just say, there's a problem there. It's more important than emunah? You're not only doing tzedakah because of emunah, because you believe there's a God. If you don't believe there's a God, why are you giving tzedakah? Not to a charity. Tzedakah, the mitzvah of tzedakah. Right? Tzedakah, mitzvah number 127, right? 613 pratim of what? What's the general klal of kol Torah kula? Hashem. That's the klal of everything. He gave us a Torah, and then that Torah, which itself is a chachma, Torah itself has an aspect of chachma, but then within that chachma, there's 613 details, and millions of psukim and words, and from there, even more details. And then you have Torah Shabbat Peh, and they have details, and Rishonim and Achronim, detail. But very often you get lost in the details, become complicated, you mess up, and you think that the detail is more important than the... Tosus is not more important than the actual Gemara itself. That doesn't make sense. You need to learn the Gemara itself, and then Tosus expands, and it's kaval, it's amazing. But don't make a mistake and flip things around. That's called an avoda zara. It's a weird avoda. Not avoda zara, you're not chayiv misa for it, but it's flipped around. None of you thought that they should bring an eish into the Kodesh Kodashim. They weren't told, because they thought that that was appropriate. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, well, you're wrong. And now you're dead. Again, there's big sugyas and panemius. But they made a mistake. It was an eish zara. It was an avoda zara. It was a weird avoda. The word zara, look at the word zara. Zayin Reish Hey. You switch around the letters, it's what? Zohar. Light. You turn the light into weird. Zohar into zara. Zar, foreign, weird. Because you're just off. So if we would take the big chachmas and we put into bina brains, avodah zarah is going to come out. It's a big problem. Yeah? Again, chachma is more simple. You don't need to rack your brain to come up with a million details. It's actually more simple. Chachma's chachma. Let things be. It's like when you're taking all the pieces of the puzzle that Marshall used before, and you're analyzing every bina, 500 analysis, and I don't know how to say it's plural of analysis, I don't know. Analyzations, it's not a word, I don't care. 500 analyzations, not a word. And you're looking at them, you're looking. You look at those 500 pieces with focus, you're just going to look at 500 pieces. It's when you put the pieces down and you relax, that's when it all snaps together. Because when you're in bina mode, you're in focus, you're thinking, which of course sometimes we have to, you're disallowing the flow of chachma to come through your system. So I bet you some of your best ideas happen just like in the shower, like when you weren't even thinking about it. Because you weren't in bina mode, you were just in showering mode, and then the chachma could just flow in. You ever had that? I hope you have. Because you haven't, you have to try. I don't mean in the shower, I'm saying in general. Sometimes you think about something a lot, then let it settle, let it be. Shh. Put on some music, just don't think about anything. And sometimes it just pops in. You have to be zocha to that. So he says weiter, because we still have to understand, okay, we can't be megala the chachmas because the later generations, the bina brains, are going to take it and make it avodah zarah. What's the nakuda, though? If we can go a little bit deeper, what is the nakuda that could take something so geval, so pure, so wisdom and bina, I mean, these are big things, and turn it around and flip it around and make it avodah zarah? What is the nakuda there? And not just a technical problem where you switch the wires around. In the human psyche, what's the problem? So if we learn Rabbi Nachman carefully, I like to be medayik in Rabbi Nachman. Sometimes I don't know what he's talking about, but sometimes if you read very carefully, be very careful. He tells you some very deep things. He just slides it in. So let's go weiter in the words here. Ulupomim, yes? Ulupomim hadoros achronim, sometimes the later generations, toin bechachmasim, they make a mistake in their chachma. Shemosifin al rishonim, they've added chachmas to the earlier generations, right? Trying to add, to expand. Al kain im hayu megalim inyanam hanal, if we would reveal, if a Kadosh Baruch Hu would allow chachmas to be revealed to these later generations, and the later generations are always trying to be mosif, to add to their chachma, and they can make a mistake in the chachma, and because they are continually adding mosifim, again it's a little bit vague here, they're always adding until the point where they're able to hisgalgil me'en yonim hanal, to roll from these inyanim that have become hidden from the world. Avodah zaros chas v'shalom. If right, they would create, like you said before, avodah zaros if the chachma would be revealed. Ki hayinid melahem al pi ta'usam, because it appears to them according to their mistake. Shekach tzarich liyos chas v'shalom la'avodasan avodah zara chas v'shalom. They think that they need to serve this avodah zara chas v'shalom. He's going to bring an example in a second, which is not so easy to understand. But he added a line over here, which it seems like he kind of said the same thing a little bit, but he added a major line over here that changes the whole thing. Not changes it, but the line is, what does he say there? What are the next two words? Lahosif aleim chachmasim. What does that mean? The Doros Achronim want rotzim b'chol pam lahosif. They want every single time to add aleim to them chachmasam. Maybe what Rabbi Nachman means over here is that the later generations, when you get into a world of details, so it's quantity. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of details. If you're not grounded by the wisdom where all the details come from, you're not grounded, you're not anchored by that wisdom, you know what could come out? Gaiva. Look at me, look how much I know. Look how much I know. I know a million things. But sir, all those million things really come from one true wisdom. Do you know what that true wisdom is? No. So then you know a lot of stuff, but you don't even know the true wisdom. So how can you be such a Baal Gaiva? No, but I know a lot of stuff. Bina without Chachma turns into Gaiva. Because Chachma, the Koach Ma, is a Koach, like we said, you put down all the pieces, you're not actively thinking, that's when the Chachma can be revealed. It's not you doing it. It has to be done to you. Your vessel has to be simple. Your vessel has to be cleared out so HaKadosh Baruch Hu could drop it in. The second you think you get it, you might have lost the opportunity to truly get it. Because when you put Bina is about I understand, I analyze, I compare. If you put that first before Chachma, you're never going to get the Chachma. Because your Bina in your mind became like the Chachma. This is the wisdom. I have it all. So the later generations, the Bina brains, in general, they're always looking lahosef alem Chachma sam. They're looking to increase their Chachma. So if a Kadosh Baruch Hu would be megalo the true wisdom to these people, what would these people do? They would take the wisdom, put it into their Baal Gaiva Bina brain, and just try to add to their own understanding, or to be able to use their wisdom for their own benefit. See, when a person has wisdom and he has chachma in this world, chachma, bina, and das, what's the tachlis? What's the tachlis? Is the tachlis so you can use it for your own benefit? Or is it tachlis so you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It's very subtle. Because people who say they're using it for their own benefit, they say, no, but I'm serving God. I have emunah, I believe. But love dafka. Because a person might really just be trying to increase his own chachma. If you're just trying to increase your own chachma, then you're just a bina guy. You can't put chachma into the dirty keli. Kadosh Baruch Hu won't do it. Yes, of course, there's always exceptions. Once in a while, he does put chachma into dirty kelim. That's his decision. But in general, that's not the way. Right? Make sense? So the nekuda within a person that will take a chachma and flip it around and digest it as a bina and use it as a avodah zarah because he messed things up is because of gaiva. It's because he lives in the world of bina without being humbled. Without being humbled. This is the nekuda. When it comes to the sugyas of chacham, bina, and das, a person has to be tremendously humble. The more humble, the more chachma can come into the person. And generally, you don't even know the biggest chachamim because they're so humble. So often you have the biggest chachamim walking around. Chacham doesn't mean they know every detail. Chachamim mean they chap life. They're the happiest people. They have the most yeshiva das. You think he's like, who is this guy? He's so simple. Why is he so happy about it? He's got no money, this guy. He's got no money. He's got no luxuries. I got it all. Why is he so happy? Yet, the Mr. Balgaiva over here is not so happy in life. He doesn't chap. That's not about the details of life. It's not about the money. This guy over here, Mr. Simple, the Tom, the simple one, he has the chachma. He doesn't need all that stuff. He's simply happy. Because he has the chachma. He chaps the world. He chaps himself. He's not lost in the details. You could have a million details and not be happy, and you could have one chachma and be the happiest guy in the world. Tmim Simshitis, chachma, bittul, koachma. It's the same thing. But if you don't have that anava, Kadosh Baruch Hu is not going to drop the chachma into you. Because if he does, you're going to dirty it up, turn it to avodah zarah, because it's just going to go into your gaiva system. Gaiva is diametrically opposed to emunah, to bittul, to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, to Baal Gaiva, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, the Gemara Sota, Ein ani v'hu dar bekfifa achas. Me and him, we can't live in the same place. Why? Because that person's ego is too big. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I can't get in. Right? Therefore, there's no chachma. If you know Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Kadosh Baruch Hu is the chachmas ha'olam. It's the big circle we started off with. If there's no room for Kadosh Baruch Hu to get in, then what are you? Then you have no chachma. Atachon ein l'adam das. Chachma bina v'das. Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're the one who gives it. That's the bracha we say every single time. And then after that, Hashiveinu Avinu Sarasach. And then you can ask for all the other bakashas. First, you have to get clear who's the real Chacham. Where's the real Bina? Where's the real Das? By Kadosh Baruch Hu. So you have to be a nana, you have to be humble, to have humility. Eved Hashem, Eved Hashem is Yud because it's equal Amunah. Eved Hashem equals Amunah. If you're not Eved Hashem, then you're just doing Avodah Zarah. Yeah? So let's finish off here. So he brings an example of this. He says, this is the mistake people make. Let's finish off. Ukamosha binyan arla. Arla, first 3 years of a tree, you're not allowed to use, not allowed to take the fruits. Usser, you can't even get hana. Can't even get benefit from it at all. You can't sell it, nothing. Got to burn it. Ki'isa bezohar, it says in the Zohar Kadosh, Sheba osana shalish shanim, the first 3 years, shora klipa alilo. There's a great klipa, a thick shell. Not physical, of course. That covers over the tree, you're not allowed to get benefit from that tree. Ubadoros arishonim, the earlier generations, ta'u bazeh, they made a mistake in this. Achahelahem avodah zarah, they actually end up serving the tree as avodah zarah. Betchilas v'netias ha'ilan, dafka beisha shara klipa, specifically in the beginning of the planting of the tree, when the klipa was on, specifically then, they served it as avodah zarah. Ki kafisha yodim heitiv, in netias ha'ilan, ma nasa mizeh, because according to their understanding, what they thought of planting and what happens, hayanidme, it appeared to them in their quote unquote chachma, hayanidme lehem api ta'usam, according to their mistake, shebevadai tzrichem lasas aso avodah zarah chas hashalom shayu ovdim. They had to make this tree an avodah zarah, according to their understanding. Ki hayanidme lehem shehu pashet kvi mashatel b'chachmasan. It seemed to them pashet according to their mistaken chachma. It was so clear to them. Right? You have this sometimes. It is so clear to you that this is emes, and everybody else is like, "What is wrong with you, man? It's total sheker." But to you, it's so pashut. Like, what's the problem with just switching the decimal point from this place to this place? It's the same thing, man. I'm joking. But there's certain times where you make a big mistake, and it's such a mistake. It's like a Lovin. We've discussed Lovin in the past. I'm not going to get into it now. Lovin was such a trickster. Lovin, Harami, was such a trickster that he tricked himself. That he actually thought he was an Ish Emes. That's for another time. Yaakov, the true Ish Emes. Lovin, the true Ish Sheker. Lovin not only was a trickster trying to trick the Ish Emes, but he was such a trickster, he tricked himself. He thought he was the Ish Emes, and Yaakov was the Ramai. Right? That's what happens to the Parsha. So manipulative, he caught himself. Therefore, it's usher to reveal. Now, I don't exactly understand the mistake here, but just one thought. The main gist here, of course, is that you can make big mistakes with big chachmas. And therefore, we have to be careful. We have to build our chachma. We have to connect to tzaddikim. We have to work on our humility, right? Work on our anava, work on our emunah and bitachon and those sugyas to build big yesodos, to work on our chachmas. And then, after that, we could build big skyscrapers. But maybe, what was the mistake they made? Why did they think dafka during the first 3 years, during the klipa, they should serve? Maybe because since there was a prohibition for the first 3 years to eat, a prohibition, when there's an isser, sometimes there's kedusha. Shabbos, they're nemelachos, they're usher. Why? Because there's kedusha by Shabbos. So when there's kedusha, there often has to be a surrounding isurim. So these chachamim thought, it's the same thing. That if I can't eat from the tree, that they believed in, we understand, Rabbi, we can't eat from the tree. Why not? There's an isser, there's a klipa. There's isser surrounding it. That must mean that the inside is kadosh, and they started to worship it as an avodah zarah. Because they made a big mistake. Again, I don't know if that's the exact understanding, but maybe that's part of the problem. When you don't understand the sugya of kedusha, you can make a big toast and think that you have to serve a tree that's arla, like you have to connect the Shabbos and the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Al Kapanim, we have to understand that the later generations and the early generations don't necessarily mean in a timeline. Because 10 minutes ago, we said the earlier generations had the Chachma. A minute ago, he just said the earlier generations made a big toast. That's not the earlier generations and the later generations. The earlier generations means when a person zochet to pure, simple truths, simple wisdom, not complicated. The later generations means when a person is stuck in his gaiva, he's selfish, he wants benefits, his own benefits, and therefore everything in the world, all the binas have to fulfill his needs, his wants. So even though they were earlier in the generations, the ones who made the toast, it's because they were looking for self-serving ways. Avram Avinu was the one who was looking to serve a Kadosh Baruch. Everybody else was looking to serve themselves. Therefore, they were only bina. There's no chachma. Anything that came in was self-serving. Big mistakes happen. We should be zocha. The simple chachma, simple emunah.